The snow was falling gently outside, covering the world in silence. John sat alone in his small wooden cabin, far from the cities, far from noise. He had lived here for years, away from people, away from the past, but tonight something felt different. Something strange was coming. Then came a knock, soft but clear. On the front door, John stood up slowly, heart beating fast. No one ever came this far, not in winter, not in the middle of the night. He opened the door and froze. There she was, standing in the snow, a tall, beautiful alien girl, glowing slightly under the moonlight. Her skin had a soft shimmer, her hair was silver blue, long and braided, her eyes, large and golden, locked onto his face like she knew him. She was wearing a strange robe, thin and torn, barely enough for the cold. She shivered, lips slightly purple, yet her voice came out calm and clear. "Do you recognize me, human?" she asked softly. "I'm your childhood neighbor." John's breath caught in his throat. That voice, that name, neighbor? His mind went back 20 years, back to the colony settlement of Arden 6, where humans once lived beside peaceful alien families. He had a best friend back then, a little alien girl named Luma. She was kind, always humming strange songs and chasing fireflies. They were just kids, but they shared everything: games, stories, dreams, until the day everything burned. The colony was attacked by raiders. Chaos, fire, screams, and then silence. In the panic, he was taken away by rescue crews. But Luma, she had vanished. Everyone said she died, taken or killed like many others. He never saw her again. But now, standing here in the cold, was a woman who looked like Luma, older, alien, and broken. He stared at her in disbelief, heart racing. "You can't be," he whispered. "Luma?" She smiled, weak but warm. "Yes, it's me, John." Her legs trembled, and she nearly collapsed. John rushed forward and caught her in his arms. Her body was cold, almost frozen. He didn't think. He acted, pulling her inside and closing the door. He wrapped her in blankets, placed her near the fire. She looked around his cabin with tired eyes, filled with something between sadness and peace. "I've been looking for you for so long," she said, her voice soft like a forgotten lullaby. "I had nowhere else to go." John made her hot tea, though she barely drank it. She was watching him carefully, like memorizing every inch of his face. "You've changed," she whispered, "but your eyes, they're the same." He couldn't speak, not yet. Too many thoughts filled his mind. Was this real? Could this alien girl really be the same child he once protected? How did she survive? Where had she been all these years? "You disappeared," he finally said. "We thought you were gone forever." "I was taken," she replied, eyes dimming, "by those who attacked the colony. They sold me, used me, changed me. But I never forgot you." She reached into her robe and pulled out a small charm worn, metal, and shaped like a star. It was the same one he had given her before the evacuation. His fingers trembled as he touched it. "You kept it?" "Always," she said. "It reminded me of home, of you." They sat in silence, fire cracking softly beside them. Outside, the storm grew stronger, wind howling through the trees. But inside, the cabin felt like another world, warm, quiet, filled with old memories and new questions. He looked at her again, so alien, and yet still Luma. What had she gone through? Why had she returned now? He wanted answers, but he also knew she needed rest. "I'll get you a bed," he said, standing up. "Thank you," she whispered, closing her eyes slowly, her body sinking deeper into the warmth. John stared at her for a long moment, heart full of confusion and something else, something softer, deeper. The girl from the stars had returned, but with her arrival, something had awakened, something powerful, something dangerous. And this was just the beginning. The cabin was quiet. As dawn broke through the frost-covered windows, golden light spilled across the wooden floor, touching the sleeping figure near the fire. John sat at the table, staring at her, trying to understand what had just happened. The girl, no. The alien woman who called herself Luma, was resting peacefully, but even in sleep, her body told a story of pain and change. Her skin was smooth, but carried faint patterns, like glowing vines under her surface. Tiny silver dots ran down her neck, and something pulsed softly at her collarbone. Not human, not anymore, John's mind raced with. Memories of the past Luma had once looked almost human, just with strange eyes and sharp nails. Now, she was something more. Something altered by time and tragedy. She stirred awake, eyes opening slowly, golden and soft. "You didn't run," she said gently, voice raspy from sleep. "I thought you might scream or throw me out." John shook his head, still watching her closely. "I almost did," he admitted. "But your voice, your eyes." "I couldn't." Luma pulled the blanket tighter around her, trying to sit up. Her movements were stiff, like her body wasn't fully used to normal gravity. John walked over and helped her without a word. As his hand touched her arm, she flinched, but then relaxed slowly. "I need to show you something," she whispered. "You deserve the truth." He nodded, unsure of what to expect. Luma stood, her robe sliding down her shoulders slightly, revealing more of her back. John gasped. Etched into her spine was a long metallic structure, half buried in her skin. It glowed faintly with blue light, humming like a sleeping machine. Around it were more of those silver vines, living tech, growing with her body. "I was changed," she said, "not by choice." She sat down on the couch, face filled with emotion. "They took me after the attack," she began. "Traded me, experimented on me. I was part of a program to create hybrids, messengers, weapons. I escaped. But not before they made me into this." John couldn't speak, his eyes wide with shock. "But why come back now?" he asked. "Why find me after all this time?" Luma looked away, her voice soft like the falling snow outside. "Because I didn't want to die alone," she whispered. "And you were the only good thing I remembered." Her words hit him hard. He walked to the window, staring out at the white forest. Heart heavy. "I don't know what to do with this," he said finally. "You're not the girl I remember." "No," she agreed. "But she's still inside me." Suddenly, a flash of red light blinked on the device in her spine. Luma gasped and held her side. Falling to her knees, John rushed to her, catching her before she hit the floor. "What's happening?" he shouted, panic in his voice. "They found me," she whispered. "The signal, it's active. They're coming." John's blood ran cold. "Who's coming?" "The ones who made me," she said, eyes glowing brighter now. "They don't let their creations go free." He helped her back onto the couch, breathing hard. "Then we need to move, get far away." "No," she said, grabbing his wrist. "There's no running." "But I can hide it for a while." She touched the side of her neck, and with a small wince, deactivated the signal. The glow faded slightly, her body relaxing again. "You said I deserve the truth," John said, kneeling beside her. "Then tell me everything." Luma nodded slowly, her face serious now. "There's a crystal inside me," she said. "They call it the Traveler Seed. It can open portals, fold space, move armies. I stole it when I escaped, and now they want it back." John stared at her in disbelief. "So you didn't just come here to find me?" She shook her head. "No, I came here to die peacefully. But seeing you, I changed my mind." Outside, the wind picked up again, snow swirling against the windows. Inside, the cabin was filled with something tense and unspoken, a connection from the past, reignited by pain and truth. He looked at her, once more alien, scarred, glowing with strange energy, but her voice, her smile, her quiet bravery still felt like Luma. "You're not alone anymore," he said, finally. "I'm not letting you face this alone." She looked up at him, tears forming in her golden eyes. "For so long, I thought I'd lost everything," she whispered. "But maybe I was just finding my way back home." Snow crunched beneath their boots as John led Luma through the old trails behind his cabin. The sky was a dull gray, heavy with clouds, and cold wind brushed against their faces, but she didn't complain, even when her thin boots sank into deep powder. He watched her carefully, one step behind, as if she might disappear again. She looked out of place, this alien woman wrapped in human clothes, and yet something about her still felt like the little girl he once knew. They reached a clearing, and Loomis stopped. "This place," she whispered, eyes scanning the trees and the snowy hill. "It hasn't changed," John nodded, slowly turning toward a worn, rusted swing hanging from a crooked metal frame. "This was our playground," he said quietly, "before the colony fell." She stepped forward and brushed snow off the swing seat. It creaked softly in the wind. "I used to swing until sunset," she said, a smile touching her lips. "You used to push me. Remember?" "I remember you always closed your eyes and sang," he replied, voice thick with emotion. "You said the wind carried your songs to the stars." She chuckled gently, a sad sound. "I was a silly child. You were hopeful," John said. "You made the stars seem like they cared." Luma sat on the swing, the metal groaning under her weight. Her robe peeked from under her coat, revealing faint lights pulsing under her skin. John knelt in front of her, suddenly serious. "What did they do to you?" Luma didn't answer right away. She reached into her coat and pulled out a tiny device, no bigger than a button. With a soft click, it projected a hologram between them, a photo faded, low quality, but clear enough to show two children, smiling. Beside a tall tree, John gasped. "That's us," he whispered. "That tree used to grow right here. I kept this," she said, "even when they erased everything else from me." Her voice trembled. "They tried to replace my memories, feed me new ones, turn me into a tool. But your face, your voice, it stayed hidden inside." Tears formed in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. "I escaped because of that memory." John looked down at the snow, unsure what to say. All these years, he had believed Luma was gone. He had blamed himself, had nightmares of the burning colony. And now here she was changed, hunted, but alive, because she had remembered him. Luma stood up suddenly, her hands shaking. "There's something else," she said. "Something I didn't tell you." She pulled up her sleeve, showing a faint red mark glowing on her wrist. "This is a tracker," she whispered. "I thought I shut it down, but it's still active." John's eyes narrowed. "Then we have to leave," he said quickly. Luma looked around at the snow-covered trees. "I just wanted to see this place one last time," she said, her voice breaking. "If I die, at least I'll die where I once felt safe." John took her hand, firm and warm. "You're not dying," he said. "Not today, not here." They turned back toward the trail, but before they could move, a faint humming sound echoed through the sky. John looked up, 3 dots in the air, growing larger by the second. "They're here," Luma whispered, eyes wide with fear. John pulled her behind a tree. Scanning the sky, drones, black, silent, and deadly, descended above the trees like vultures. He grabbed her hand again, this time tighter. "We're going to the tunnels," he said, "now." "But they'll scan for heat," she warned. "They'll find us." John nodded, pulling something from his coat, a flare bomb from his old survival stash. "I'll distract them." He said, "You go south, to the old supply shed. Wait for me there." "No," she protested. "I won't leave you." "You have to," he said. "I've survived worse." He tossed the flare far into the woods and activated it. With a hiss, it exploded in a burst of heat and smoke. The drones veered off toward the noise. "Run!" he shouted, pushing her down the path. Luma hesitated, then turned and vanished into the white trees. John ran in the other direction, snow flying behind him as the cold bit into his lungs. His heart pounded, not just from running, but from fear, not for himself, but for her. This wasn't just about hiding anymore. He had seen her pain, her memories, her strength. He wasn't going to let her go through this alone, not again. In the distance, the swing in the clearing swayed gently, untouched by wind. A place of memories, now left behind once more. But the past was no longer forgotten. It was awake, alive and ready to fight. Asterisk, the snow had thickened, covering every trace of Luma's footprints. She crouched behind the rusted metal walls of the old supply shed. Shivering, watching the sky, her hands trembled. Not just from cold, but from fear. Every distant hum, every shadow in the clouds, made her flinch. She pressed her palm to her wrist, trying again to shut down the tracker, but it only flickered weakly. It was too late. They had found her, and John was out there, risking everything, again. She curled tighter, hugging her knees to her chest, her thoughts loud and racing. She never meant to drag him into this. He was supposed to be safe, far from the war, far from the Empire's reach. But the moment she saw him again, something inside her had cracked, that old photo in her hands. His face in her memories. It wasn't just the past, it was hope. Hope that someone still saw her as more than a weapon. A faint sound snapped her thoughts. Snow crunching, someone approaching. She tensed, her fingers ready to spark with the small burst of energy she had left. But then his voice, low and calm. "Luma." "It's me." She rushed to the door, flinging it open, and there he was, cheeks red from wind, jacket soaked in snow, but alive. "You're late," she said, trying to smile. "Got lost," he replied, stepping in. The drones followed. The flare just long enough. She closed the door, locked it tight, and turned to him. "You shouldn't have come back," she said, voice trembling. "I always come back," he answered, wiping snow from his face. They stood in silence, breathing hard, the small space growing warmer from body heat and emotion. Then she spoke slowly. "John, I need to tell you what they want from me." She reached up and pulled her coat down from her shoulder. In the dim light, something inside her chest began to glow bright, pulsing with power. It was embedded near her heart, a crystal no bigger than a coin, translucent, alive, almost humming. John stared, unable to speak. "This," she said, "is the traveler's seed." She sat down on a crate, the glow lighting her face from below. "It's not just power, John," she said. "It's a key. A weapon, a curse. When the Empire captured me, they thought I was just a child. But my body, my blood matched the old code, the one needed to carry the seed. They cut it from another carrier and placed it inside me." John stepped back, shaken. "You've had that inside you all these years?" She nodded. "It grows with me, feeds from me, listens to me," she said. "And if I die, it releases a pulse that can open a gate big enough to bring down a planet's shield." John stared at her, the weight of her words hitting him like ice. "They want it back," he whispered. "They want me back," she corrected. "But they'll kill anyone I touch first." He sat beside her, quiet. "So that's why you ran." "Not just ran," she said, looking at him. "I stole it, on purpose." He turned to her, eyes narrowed. "You wanted this?" "I wanted to destroy it," she said, her voice shaking. "But I couldn't. It's alive. It's tied to me now. Then why not hide on some dead moon? Why come to Earth?" She touched his arm gently. "Because Earth is the last place they'd look for me. And because I knew you'd still remember." John's heart twisted. She believed in him more than he believed in himself. Outside, the wind howled louder. The shed creaked, but inside there was silence, until a sharp beep echoed from her wrist. She looked down, pale. "They've locked onto my location again," she said. "The signal jumped satellites." John stood, already pulling open a dusty cabinet, tossing out cans and tools. "I have an idea," he said, grabbing a rusted toolkit and a signal scrambler. "I might be able to jam their signal for a while. Maybe a few hours." She looked up at him, eyes filled with disbelief. "You're not a soldier," she said. "No," he answered. "But I fixed colony towers when I was 15. He sat beside her and began working, fingers moving quickly. The tiny device sparked, buzzed, then fell silent. "There," he said. "That should buy us time." Luma watched him in awe. "You never stopped learning," she said. "You never stopped running," he replied. Their eyes met. And for a moment, the war faded, the cold vanished. Only two souls remained, one broken, one brave, both remembering what it meant to belong. I don't know what happens next, she said softly. John placed his hand over hers. Then we figure it out together. The crystal between them pulsed again, softer now, as if it too was listening. And in that fragile silence, a promise was made, not just to fight, but to protect, to believe, to carry each other through whatever came. Next, the snowstorm had passed, but the sky above was still heavy and dark. John and Luma had left the old shed behind and returned to his cabin before sunrise. It was quiet now, too quiet. Luma sat near the window, her golden eyes scanning the tree line. Her fingers pressed lightly against her wrist where the tracker mark had faded. I don't hear them yet, she whispered, but they're coming. John checked the emergency radio he had hidden beneath the floorboards. Static, nothing but static. The enemy wasn't broadcasting, they were hunting silently. They'll be on foot, she said. Stealth squads, maybe 2 or 3, no machines this time. Why no machines? He asked. Too loud, she replied. They know I'll run if I hear them coming. John went to the kitchen and pulled out a long black case. Inside was an old energy rifle, dusty but loaded. I never thought I'd use this again, he said. I hoped you wouldn't have to, Luma answered, standing beside him. Then, through the silence, came a strange clicking sound, soft, rhythmic, and not from nature. Luma's breath caught in her throat. Scouts, she whispered. Closer than I thought. John ran to the window and spotted movement. 2 tall, shadowy figures moving between trees. Not human. Not fully alien either, mercenaries. Genetically engineered to track and kill. He grabbed Luma's hand. We're going to the tunnels, he said. Now. They rushed out the back door, ducking low. Footsteps muffled by fresh snow. The hidden path behind the cabin led into the forest, then down into the hills. They didn't speak as they ran, breathing hard, staying low. But the trackers were fast and getting closer. One sudden energy blast sizzled past a tree beside them, scorching the bark. Go left, John shouted. Now. They leaped down a slope, Luma sliding, her coat catching on thorns. John grabbed her before she could fall. Then, finally they saw it. The old maintenance tunnel entrance, half buried in snow. He pried the metal hatch open, and they slipped inside just as another shot echoed behind them. The hatch closed, locking with a hiss, cutting off the cold and the noise. Inside, the air was stale. The tunnel dark except for the glow from Luma's crystal. This leads to the resistance vault, John said, panting. I thought they destroyed those. Luma replied. They did, he said. But my father helped build this one. And he told me how to find it. They walked slowly, the tunnel sloping downward. The walls damp and cracked. Luma's crystal lit the path ahead, casting shifting lights on the metal floor. Her face was pale, sweat beading along her forehead. You're hurt, John said. You've been limping. It's the seed, she replied. Too much running. It drains me. John helped her sit, then knelt beside her. Let me carry it, he said. Just for a while. You can't, she said, shaking her head. It's bonded to me now. Only death can break that. Then I'll carry you, he said, lifting her gently. She rested her head against his chest, her body trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered. You should have never been dragged into this. You didn't drag me, he said. I followed you. Finally, the tunnel opened into a wide circular chamber, old tech, dusty consoles, crates with faded logos. This place is ancient, Luma said, sitting against the wall. Maybe, John replied, but it still has power. He activated the emergency backup, and the room lit up with a faint blue glow. A single medical pod stood at the far end, dusty but intact. Get inside, he said, pointing to the pod. But no arguments, he said firmly. You need rest. And I need to draw them away. Luma's eyes widened. You're going to face them alone? If I don't, they'll find this place. And you, he said. "But they'll kill you." "Not if I'm smart," he said, forcing a weak smile. "You're not that smart," she replied, trying to joke, but her voice cracked and tears shimmered in her eyes. "I'll come back," he said, brushing her cheek gently. "I promise." She stared at him, then pulled him close. "If you don't, I'll follow you to the stars and drag you back." He laughed softly, then locked the pod with her inside. As it sealed, she looked at him through the glass, her eyes glowing faintly. John turned and walked back into the tunnel, rifle in hand. Step steady, above, the hunters were near, maybe minutes away, but this time, they wouldn't find prey. They'd find a human angry, ready, and willing to protect what mattered, and somewhere deep below, the girl with the glowing heart waited. For the man who had never stopped believing she was worth saving. Asterisk, the hum of the medical pod echoed softly in the chamber. Inside, Luma lay still, her body glowing faintly, chest rising and falling with slow, heavy breaths. The traveler's seed pulsed beneath her skin blue light, flashing weakly like a flickering flame. She could hear distant echoes of John's footsteps fading into the tunnel. Her heart wanted to scream, to pull him back, but her body refused to move. She was too weak, too drained, too full of pain and power. Inside her mind, strange images swirled, memories, both real and artificial, alien voices, experiments, stars shifting across space, a child's laughter, and always John's voice, calling her name through the dark. Even when she had been locked in a lab on a distant moon, that memory had never left. Now, it returned stronger than ever. As the pod worked to stabilize her body, she reached out mentally toward him, but all she found was silence. Meanwhile, John climbed toward the surface, heart pounding, rifle gripped tightly in his hands. He could hear footsteps now, not loud, but purposeful. Shadows flickered at the top of the slope, moving with alien grace. He slowed, kneeling behind a broken pillar, watching, waiting. 3 of them tall, armored, with sleek masks and scanning visors. They weren't just soldiers, they were reclaimers trained to recover stolen tech. No matter the cost. They spoke in a language he didn't understand, but their body language was clear. They were hunting something, or someone. And they were close. John reached into his coat and pulled out a signal amplifier he had built earlier. He set it to overload and tossed it across the tunnel floor with a sudden burst. It lit up the area in blinding white light. The reclaimers reacted fast, aiming their weapons, but John was already moving. He fired twice, hitting one in the shoulder, sending sparks flying. The others split. Moving with unnatural speed, John ducked behind crates, his breath sharp and cold in the air. He wasn't a soldier, but he was protecting her, and that made him dangerous back. In the chamber, the pod suddenly flickered. Luma's body spasmed, and the light from the crystal surged wildly. The machine beeped an alarm. Unable to contain the energy, her eyes flew open wide, glowing, almost white with energy. She gasped, struggling to breathe. "No," she whispered. "John, he's in danger." With trembling fingers, she forced the pod open, its systems protesting as sparks flew. She fell to the ground, panting, hands clutching her chest where the crystal beat like a second heart. She could feel his fear, his heartbeat through their connection. The seed had started something ancient and forbidden. She placed her hand on the ground, channeling the energy not into a weapon, but into a message, a mental burst, directed only at him. Underground, John staggered as something flashed in his mind. A voice, not from outside, but from deep within. "John." "I'm here," it whispered. "Let me help." His vision blurred, and suddenly he saw her standing in a circle of stars, her hand reaching toward him. He blinked, and the image vanished, but the warmth stayed. Then, the rifle in his hands glowed faintly, no longer just metal, but humming. With strange power, the seed was speaking through him now. Borrowing his will, he aimed, fired, and this time, the blast was stronger, brighter. It hit one of the reclaimers straight in the chest, sending it flying against the wall. John stared in disbelief. What was that? He breathed. Then he heard footsteps rushing down the slope, but not enemy footsteps. Luma appeared, still glowing, eyes bright but face pale. You shouldn't be up, he said, moving toward her. She collapsed into his arms, gasping. You needed me, she whispered. I felt it. The seed opened a bridge between us. John held her close, stunned and overwhelmed. You gave me power. No, she said, her voice soft. I shared it, only a piece. It's yours now, too. A low groan echoed behind them, the last reclaimer rising. Armor cracked but functional. John raised his rifle again, but Luma stepped forward, her hand glowing bright. This ends now, she said. She released a wave of energy, not deadly but blinding, overwhelming. The reclaimer staggered, dropped his weapon, then collapsed. Luma fell to her knees, drained once more, but alive. John ran to her, pulling her into his arms again. You shouldn't have come, he said, voice shaking. And leave you alone? She whispered, never. They sat there for a long moment, holding each other in the dark, not just survivor and protector, not just human and alien, but something new, bonded by pain, by memory, by the seed itself. We have to leave this place, John said. They'll send more. Luma nodded weakly. Yes. But now we're not alone. And as they stood together, the crystal between them glowing in rhythm, they both knew what came next would change everything. The seed had chosen its path, and it had chosen them. The cold wind howled across the mountain ridge, carrying snow and dust high into the air. Luma and John stood at the edge of the cliffs, looking down at the dark forest below. Behind them, the old resistance chamber had collapsed. The last reclaimer's final self-destruction had triggered a tremor. Now the tunnel was gone, sealed forever beneath stone and snow. But they were alive, barely standing, bodies weak, hearts racing. And above all, the seed was still inside Luma, pulsing brighter than ever. We don't have much time, Luma said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon. They'll send more. Bigger forces. They won't stop until I'm captured, John nodded, jaw tight. I know, he said. But we're not running this time. He placed a small device in the snow, a beacon. One from the resistance vault. It was old, but strong enough to send a pulse across the sector. I sent a message, he said, to anyone still out there. Anyone who remembers the old alliance. Luma looked at him, surprised. Do you think someone will answer? I don't know, he said, but we can't do this alone anymore. She stepped closer to him, her arms folded tightly around her chest. Her skin shimmered with light, veins glowing with the crystal's rhythm. I can feel it growing, she whispered. It's becoming more alive. John watched her carefully. Is it hurting you? No, she said. It's transforming me. John reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, but her pulse was strong. What does that mean? He asked. Luma looked down at their joined hands. It means I may not be the same much longer, she whispered. I'm becoming something new. Not just alien, not just human. Something in between. John didn't let go. I don't care what you become, he said. You're still Luma to me. She looked up at him, tears in her golden eyes. Even if I don't look like her anymore? Even then, he said, because it's not your face I remember. It's your heart. A silence passed between them, thick with memories, the playground, the songs, the broken star charm she still carried. Then suddenly, a loud hum filled the air. They turned, eyes wide, as a ship appeared above the cliffs. Breaking through the clouds, sleek, black and massive, it hovered just above the snow. Silent and deadly, a large sigil glowed on its side, the mark of the Empire, the one that had taken everything from her. They came faster than I thought, Luma said, taking a deep breath. John raised his rifle, but she placed her hand gently on it. No, she said, this is not your fight anymore. The hell it's not, he said, stepping in front of her. They're not taking you again. A deep voice echoed from the ship's speaker. Luma of Arden 6, surrender the seed. And your death will be painless. She stepped forward, shoulders back, eyes glowing. I'm not surrendering, she said aloud. Not now, not ever. John stood beside her, heart pounding. What do we do? She looked at him with a soft smile. We give them what they fear, she said. Not power, but unity. She turned to him, lifting his hand to her chest. The seed pulsed between them. And suddenly John felt it again. The warmth, the pain, the strength, all flowing into him. He saw her memories once more, her captivity, her escape, her lonely journey across galaxies. But now he also saw her dreams, her hopes. And him, always him. When the light faded, they were both glowing, connected through something deeper than just words or flesh. Bonded by the seed, by love, by purpose, the ship opened its main hatch. Soldiers stepped forward tall, armored, their weapons raised. But before they could move, Luma raised her hand. I've had enough of running, she said. Energy surged from her body, not as a weapon, but as a wave of pure force. It pushed the soldiers back, not hurting them, but freezing them in place. The seed was no longer just a tool. It was listening to her will. It was hers, finally. The commander's voice shouted in anger. This is your last warning. Luma stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with power. No, she said. This is yours. She released the final surge, bright, silent, beautiful. It hit the ship's systems, disabling its engines without causing fire or death. The massive craft dropped gently to the snow. Lights flickering, the Empire's pride defeated, by one girl and a human by her side. The silence that followed was long and full of awe. John walked to her, still glowing, still stunned. You did it, he whispered. No, she said, turning to him, eyes soft. We did it. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Her body was warmer now, pulsing softly with the seed's light. But in his heart, she was just Luma, his neighbor, his friend, the girl he never stopped waiting for. Do you still recognize me? She asked, voice trembling. He pulled back slightly, looking deep into her glowing eyes. Of course I do, he said. You've always been the girl from the stars, the one who came back. And as the snow fell gently around them, and the broken ship lay silent behind, they stood together, two souls bound by fate, by memory, and by something far greater. The seed had not destroyed them, it had made them whole.